Hi, I'm Manny, and I've been doing a little bit of remembering. Like, I've been tracing my history with playing games backwards. Like, I start with, well, what have I been playing lately? And then what did I play before that? And then just working my way backwards to see what else I can sort of unearth in my memory. Because if I just straight up try to remember like a long past year, which, yes, I'm old, if I try to remember it off rip, like my brain just goes blank. But I remember the first game I ever 100%ed was Jack and Daxter, the precursor legacy for the PS2. And it's strange because I was never really super invested in the Jack and Daxter games. I barely got to play a little bit of Jack 2, never got to play Jack 3, never got to play the Daxter one on PSP, even though I had a PSP and I like to sail the seas on my PSP. But yeah, I've kind of been like going back through my history with playing video games, and I remembered one of the biggest things after I started being a bit more of a co-op centric gamer is was Left 4 Dead, the original Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, where I would get so into it when we were playing with friends that whenever you'd hear the witch crying, because you were supposed to stay quiet and not disturb her, I would like actually like look to my friends and go, shh, and just like try and quiet them down. And they're like, why are you like, we're playing a game. You don't have to. But I would get so into it. Like, I love Left 4 Dead, and that kind of led to me becoming quite big into Warhammer 40K Darktide, because even though I'm not super into the Warhammer 40K universe, I do love that sort of Left 4 Dead, four idiots learning to trust each other as they're confronted by hordes of enemies and they have to like complete objectives and defend positions and stuff. Like, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, it's been quite a sort of like, it revealed a lot of things about myself that I didn't remember. Like, for example, there was a Final Fantasy fighting game called Dissidia that was for PSP, and I remember I was super into it despite it not actually being that great a game and completely wonky in its balancing, but whatever. And I love to play Kuja and just absolutely beat the ass of all my friends who also played it on their PSPs through unconventional means, I will say, because I don't look, I don't want to straight up say it, but you know what I'm referring to with the PSP stuff. But anyway, yeah, like I remember I was super into Final Fantasy Advent Children, the Final Fantasy VII animated film, and for me, Dissidia kind of fulfilled the fantasy that I wanted to fulfill when I watched the scene with like Cloud fighting Sephiroth and Tifa fighting that one dude with the weird thing on his arm and all that shit. Oh my god, I just remembered, like it literally struck me right now. Speaking of unconventional fighting games, I could yap on. Actually, I'm going to save that particular thing for the next video, maybe. I don't know. But one fighting game series that I absolutely, well, it's not a series, it was one game, but I hold it near and dear to my heart as a fan of B monster movies and like old timey, yeah, like creature features. It was called War of the Monsters. It was on PS2. I don't know what else it might have been on, maybe on Xbox, I don't know, but it was on PS2, and it was a kaiju fighting game, but like none of the kaijus in it were established like characters from movies. Like, they were all just made for the game, and they were kind of like pastiches or parodies of famous, like actual famous movie monsters. But yeah, it was a giant monster fighting game that presented itself as if you, the player, were going to an old drive in movie theater where they'd have the big screen and the open sky, and you'd watch old black and white monster movies. And the menu and the character select and all the cinematics were made to look like old, like monster, like movies from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it was so much fun. You could like throw buildings, and all the monsters had special attacks. If you're familiar with the old Godzilla fighting games, like the good ones, the uh Destroy All Monsters Melee, Godzilla Save the Earth, and Godzilla Unleashed. It was kind of like that, but with a big sort of like old B monster movie charm. And I love this fucking game, and it breaks my heart that you can't even play it nowadays. Like they never did anything with the franchise because it was so much fun. I loved using the dude who was like an eyeball with a body made of electricity, and I he had this grab attack that I would absolutely abuse and utterly tilt all my friends and my brother whenever I played him, and we'd spend time throwing buildings at each other and finding the best because the levels were full cities. It wasn't just like a stage and you two monsters fight. It was a whole city that you could go around and grab like improvised weaponry out of like antennas and towers and stuff and hit each other, and it was so much fun. Oh my god. I've got to look up to see if anything's happened with that game or if it has, because lots of old fighting games still have active communities, but I mean, considering the fact that they're doing like a remaster of the original Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters Melee, which I am super looking forward to, I ought to look into what sort of became of the IP of War of the Monsters, because as somebody who grew up watching Cinemassacre and that sort of seeded my love for old monster movies, like it was my fucking dream game. It was a dream come true. This game was heaven for me. And I honestly wonder what kind of happened to the sort of like big kaiju beat 'em up like 1v1 fighter, or hell like 1v1v1v1, 4 player sort of battle royale kind of thing in 3D. Like what the hell happened to that? Like there's such an untapped market there, and I wonder what the hell are these developers doing that they're not capitalizing on this big empty gap of enjoyment for people who love playing games where you're a giant monster and you just fuck shit up. And yeah, like it's pretty much gone exactly like that. I'll sort of like spiral in a good way into like an obsession over an old game that I used to play that I managed to like recall or remember. And it's not so much a nostalgia thing where, oh, I miss back then because it was better. I just miss back then because we don't get things like that nowadays. Like back then developers could like come up with all these crazy ideas, and they were a lot more willing to take chances with like franchises that, or new ideas that weren't established. Like you could have a B monster movie fighting game, like you could have a sort of battle royale with kaijus, right? You could have these crazy ideas, and it didn't feel like everything needed to be like sort of like name brand, big name stuff. Like you could get weird and experimental, and it led to so many unique gaming experiences. But now I am actually starting to turn into the old man who yells at clouds. So I'm just gonna say that's enough yapping for me today. Thanks for listening and or watching. And on the next drawing session, I'm going to be trying to color the main figure. Thanks for listening and see you later. Bye bye.